Hi, my name is Kirsten Lloyd, and I'm head of go-to-market here at Modzy. I'm joined by our head of product, Seth Clark, and we're here to take you through an overview of the Modzy product and a demo today. So with that, let's get started. So over years, the last few years of working to solve some of the toughest challenges with developing and operationalizing AI, we really recognize a number of patterns in the approach that we had to take to actually get this really difficult technology to work. For data scientists who are tasked with building and deploying machine learning models, they often lack the software development expertise to actually be able to deploy models that are developed in the lab into production at scale. For software engineers, on the flip side, who are tasked with taking these models and productionizing them, they typically lack the machine learning expertise required to help really build software that is scaled and powered by AI. This is also compounded by the fact that they often lack the experience in how to build transparency, explainability, and accountability necessary for us to be able to trust AI-enabled systems. For end users who are consuming the results of AI-enabled systems, they're often highly skeptical of the predictions and recommendations made by AI. So having that trust and ability to look under the hood of an AI model is super important. But unfortunately, many systems today don't meet the needs of this end user. On the other side of AI stakeholders, you have your CIOs, CTOs, and program managers who are responsible for the governance and management. Current tools and systems today do not allow them to look into how AI is being used across their enterprise. And this is leading to a lot of different risks, both in wasted and duplicitous efforts in building different AI systems, and not being able to track the security needs related to securing AI-enabled systems, and a number of other problems that result from basically what we call shadow AI. So teams just building and deploying new AI models and systems outside of the purview of the centralized IT department. And so with that in mind, we developed Modzy, which is a commercial software product comprised of an enterprise AI platform for deploying, managing, monitoring, and securing AI models in production. This really helps reduce the friction between data science and development teams that I mentioned earlier, passing AI models from data scientists into the hands of developers, reducing that 9-month time to deployment into a matter of hours. This is also compounded by our model repository, which helps you package and deploy either your own models or models taken from our commercial model marketplace so that you're really only deploying trustworthy AI into production at scale. Modzy has a number of different benefits for the end users that I mentioned earlier. Some of this is through the power of choice, because Modzy is an open architecture software product. What does this mean? This means that you can choose what models you want from any vendor in the marketplace and how much you want to use. Seth will talk a little bit about sort of the trade-offs between performance, latency, and infrastructure optimization later. Choice also includes the ability to deploy Modzy in the cloud, on-premise, or in air-gapped environments. Many products don't think about the latter. We make it easy for you to do that. The next piece is speed and scale. So like I mentioned earlier, with just a few lines of code, Modzy allows data scientists and developers to do what they do best faster than ever before. We also allow them to use whatever tools, languages, training frameworks they're already using, so that you're really just adding an AI layer into your existing tech stack. Another piece is security. All of our assets are protected and hardened with application security and enterprise access management. We're also hardened and built to comply with some of the most stringent standards because we know for many of our customers, security is paramount. And then the last 3 areas that are called out on this slide includes adversarial defense, which is just another added layer of security down at the model level, explainability for pixel-based neural networks, and then finally retraining. So really automating and taking some of those commercially pre-trained models that I mentioned earlier and customizing and tailoring them for your own data. This is all in service of ML ops and model ops, really driving forward this new way of deploying AI into production at scale. And Modzy's been recognized by both Gartner and Forrester as an industry leader in this space. Modzy has capabilities for a number of different industry verticals, both within the federal government and then also in the adjacent commercial space where it is a highly regulated space for AI. So this is just calling them out on this slide, and you can look at our website for a bit more information if you need it. And with that, I will pass things over to Seth to talk about where Modzy fits within your stack and then take you through a demo.
Thanks so much, Kirsten. Yeah, so now that we've talked a little bit about the space in which we're trying to make artificial intelligence kind of more valuable to your organization, I wanted to give you a second to understand how we're approaching solving this problem. Essentially, the way I look at it is trying to start generating the return on the investment that you're putting into artificial intelligence across your enterprise. Typically, building custom AI applications is a very laborious and difficult process because it requires data scientists and software developers, machine learning engineers, data engineers, DevOps engineers, and then program managers, requirements. You're creating this giant list of people who all have to be 100% on the same page and have a lot of sort of cross-pollinated knowledge of how to put all of this stuff together so that you can have an application powered by AI that ultimately delivers value to the business user who's at the other end of the screen. And that can be a really complicated process and sometimes results in really slow development. And even more frequently, once you've actually created that system, keeping it updated or making it adaptable as environments and situations change can be very tough. So what we've done with Modzy is really focused on trying to provide, in simple terms, a middleware layer for artificial intelligence. So rather than embedding one AI model in every single enterprise system, forcing you to really customize each of these systems or procure entirely new systems, which is very expensive and time consuming, Modzy provides a mechanism where you have a single centralized environment for managing, deploying, and scaling all of the AI and machine learning models you might need to use across your enterprise, and then use all the connections we've built in place through our SDKs and our APIs to integrate all of those algorithms into the wide range of systems you may need to add AI. So this means that you can keep using whatever infrastructure layer you've already procured, whether that's your own on-premise environment, hybrid cloud, or public commercial cloud offerings. We can deploy Modzy in any of those spaces. Secondly, it means you can keep your data assets in whatever systems they're already in. So if you have existing data storage solutions, data management solutions, data repositories, all of the data, which is really the oil of your business, can stay where it is, and Modzy can then connect to that data and process it really however you'd like. And then finally, at the application layer, which is really where business users are interacting with these models typically, Modzy provides a set of APIs and SDKs that then allow you to consume these models and process your data against these models from whatever application your customers need to operate from. So it really helps separate out the AI portion of large enterprise systems from the other layers, allowing for better reusability of these models, faster iteration, a better collaboration between data scientists and software developers, and the ability to actually start integrating both commercial algorithms as well as your own proprietary algorithms into an enterprise environment. So we see that as really being able to increase the speed at which you can bring AI solutions to market and iterate on those solutions over time. The last component I wanted to talk about on the next slide is a bit of a deeper dive into the machine learning operations process, often called MLOps, and where Modzy sits. I think in simple terms, we joke around that we're kind of like the Amazon delivery drivers for AI. Really trying to take the models that need to get put into production and drive them that last mile so that they're up, they're available, and they're ready for integration across a really large enterprise. So this is an example of how our data science team actually ties together the various pieces and software components and products and tools into a pipeline that allows a data science organization to focus on building and deploying models really quickly, and then a IT organization and software development organization that can then consume those models and integrate them into business-facing applications. So that includes the model training process, the code versioning, the use of CI/CD build processes to then deploy containerized algorithms. These containerized algorithms essentially treat the model, that code that's doing the magic behind the scenes, as a black box. So as a data scientist, as an algorithm designer, you can create whatever type of model you need to create to solve a specific business challenge. If you're doing work with computer vision, you may be using deep neural networks. If you're doing tabular-based modeling, you may be using other types of traditional ML. You can use really whatever language, whatever frameworks, whatever additional dependencies you might need to create the right model for your task, package that into a standard container that we've defined. And we've got all of these templates available online that make it really easy to follow through this process. And once your algorithm is containerized, we can deploy it into Modzy in a matter of minutes. And at that point, you've basically taken the process of building a model and turned it into a single API endpoint that a software development team can now start consuming and pulling into their own model. And we've seen just dramatic increases in speed, in which typically that 9-month process that Kirsten was talking about, from training a model to getting it into production, can be cut down to a single day, which is a huge operational efficiency. And it's all honestly just a lot more fun for data scientists and software developers to collaborate in such an iterative and really fast process. Finally, as we talked about before, all of these tools can really exist wherever they need to for really sensitive data. All of this sometimes has to be done on site, on premise. In the scenario where that has to happen, Modzy can be deployed on your physical infrastructure within a very secure environment if it's touching mission critical data. That's great. Alternatively, all of this can be done in the public cloud, and Modzy has offerings in both AWS, and coming soon there'll be more in Azure and some other cloud providers, where you can actually push button deploy the entire Modzy platform right into your account. So with that, I kind of wanted to walk you through the product and just give you a sense of what this looks like. So we'll go ahead and shift over to the live demo portion here. All right. So this is the Modzi Marketplace. You can think of this as kind of the Apple App Store or Google Play Store for machine learning algorithms. And this represents the combination of both commercial algorithms that you might purchase through the Modzi Marketplace, the open source algorithms that come alongside with every instance of Modzy, as well as your own models that you as a data scientist or as an executive, your organization is developing, producing, and contributing. All of these models then are available within your enterprise and can be used and recombined and joined together and consumed in whatever combination your business units are asking for. So this includes a whole range of different offerings. We've pulled in capabilities from a range of world-class algorithm developers from all across Silicon Valley. So not only do we have our own Modzy data science team that's been developing a range of really interesting models, from natural language processing to computer vision to language identification to full motion video analysis, but we've pulled in models from the open source community and academia, models from leaders in NLP and voice transcription like AppTech, leaders from across the defense and federal government space from Booz Allen Hamilton, and a range of other really top-notch companies. So all these commercial algorithms can be independently used and purchased and licensed to help contribute to the capabilities that you as an organization are trying to add to your enterprise. In addition to that, Modzy also provides a space for you to manage all of your own internal models. So in this case, we have a fake company called Skyforge, and they can use this same marketplace for all of their own internal model management, deployment, and governance. This mechanism really opens the door for data scientists and software developers to more easily collaborate. And finally, as an individual data scientist, I also get my own little workspace. I get a sandbox that I can use to also test, deploy, and iterate on algorithms in a really easy to use way. So this whole mechanism is really around ease of access, repeatability, reusability of machine learning models, which we think are going to significantly cut down on the time to market, as well as the overall costs invested into machine learning initiatives. So, as a business leader, if you're looking for a specific capability and you discover something that might meet your needs, for instance, we might be an energy company who's looking to quantify the amount of available roof area for possible solar panel deployments. You could use a model like this overhead building detection algorithm, which will essentially identify the outlines of all buildings in a given set of imagery. We've had a partner just do just that and essentially use this model to help identify available roof space for solar panels. As a business user, you can get an understanding and general overview of what this model does, how it operates, and the scenarios in which it really performs best. This includes a quick overview so you can see this model running live to give you some example outputs of what you can expect. So here we see images from a range of different overhead samples from around the world, Sudan, Las Vegas, Brazil, and out here on the right side, you see the outputs that are generated by this model. And this is meant to provide a general understanding of the kinds of capabilities that you've got at your disposal. If this model looks like it's something that might be of value to you, whether it's from a commercial source or maybe another data science team down the hallway, you can dig in a little further to learn more about this model. We believe in transparency within Modzy as being a huge driver of AI transformation. So a central part of every single model listing in the product is a real focus on communicating and sharing every aspect about this model's usage and performance that we possibly can. This includes performance metrics, providing a good understanding of how this model works, where it performs really well, and maybe where it has some weaknesses, along with the documentation of the actual metrics that quantify how good this model is at doing its job. In addition to that, we've got a lot of details for every single model about the background, how this model was trained, the type of data that it was trained on, the actual hardware that was used, and the amount of training time applied. Many of these pieces of information can be essential to determine if a model that was trained a year ago by another organization is going to be able to meet your unique needs. And finally, if all that information seems to point to the fact that this model is going to do a good job at the task you've got identified, we provide this really simple copy and pastable API endpoint code. This is the information that a software developer can use to really start consuming this model. So in this case, copying this 20-line JSON structure gives a software developer who's building a custom application, integrating a model into a case management system or content management system, building a mobile app, or pipelining data coming straight off of a satellite. They can use this same structure to call this model, send data to that model, and then Modzy does all the hard work of spinning that model up, processing any inputs that have been submitted, generating the results, and then providing them back to that software developer in a format and in a location that's really easy for them to use. So all of this really reduces the overhead it takes to get a model into a format where you can start consuming it and really integrating it into a lot more valuable applications. So all of this information is really helpful. Once you've got models in production now, how do you actually manage, secure, and govern those models? Well, that's where our AI management tools come into play. So within AI management, we provide both AI operational support as well as account management. So we'll kick things off just talking a little bit about security and how we approach the security of models. For any models that you would deploy to Modzy, we provide a number of mechanisms to help defend them from misuse, as well as really unique and sophisticated security attacks. So one of the things that we do is leverage a pretty robust API key system where API keys are used to control who has access to certain models and gives the administrator control over how much hardware, infrastructure, and time someone is able to use these models. So here we can see the list of 44 individual users that have been given personal API keys to Modzy. And we can use this to figure out who's been processing what data against what models, when, and how often, as well as system access keys, which you can use to implement these models into other applications. All of this provides a lot of granularity so administrators and the security team can make sure nothing's being misused. With that security in place, you're then provided with a number of capabilities to help you manage those models that are in production. So every single model that gets deployed to Modzy is documented, logged, and all usage of that model is provided to you through this models interface. This includes the ability to actually configure and control the hardware that's being set aside for each of these models. So if we pick one of these models, this object detection model, we can see how many jobs have been submitted, which essentially represents one batch of data. This model has received 3 batches of data. It was created by Modzy. It's processed about 3 megs of data and only one person's used it so far. So you really have a good amount of information, especially at the C level, of where AI is being used, which models are providing the most value, and which type of creators are generating the most valuable outcomes. As an administrator, you also have the tools to control the hardware usage of this particular model. In this case, I can increase the minimum number of processing engines used here to 1, so this model is always on. And in cases where you have a really high need for low latency, this is an incredibly valuable way to make sure that your model is performing at the speed you need it to perform at. Now, as a data scientist, if I want to start taking advantage of this system and deploying my own models, we have a really simple mechanism for you to do that. Essentially, after the packaging process is complete, which we talked about before, you can essentially walk through this 4-step process to upload or import your model into Modzy. And then we ask for just a few pieces of information. This includes a selection of the specific hardware requirements that your model has. For really simple models, that might just be a CPU with a little bit of RAM in order to sufficiently use your model. In other cases, for really complicated neural networks, you might need to use a bigger instance that leverages more memory and a GPU. That's completely configurable, and the value out of this is that you're able to balance your need for performance with your need to manage costs, because the costs associated with running AI in production can be truly massive, and Modzy takes that very seriously. With that information, you can then provide the input and outputs for your model, and really that's just to tell our product what kinds of data it takes in and what kinds of data it generates. With that information, we can essentially treat your model like a black box, process that input, send it to your model. Your model does its job, sends a result, and then through our API framework, we provide access to that information and really send it wherever you'd like. The final step is to really provide that documentation for a specific model, provide that content that you can then use to share your model and inform your teammates and colleagues with everything they might need to know to consume that model. With all of that complete, you can then review and publish your model and make it available after a suitable approval process to the rest of the organization. So that really ends the data scientist step in the process. The final step then comes for software developers, and we make it really simple for them to learn how to then consume all of these powerful AI capabilities through a documentation. So as a software developer, you can come in here and learn just about everything imaginable from our API. And this includes some really simple example how-to guides for doing standard things within the product. This includes information on how to help package models and deploy those models, and then information about the various integrations that we offer, both in terms of the technical tools, SDKs and APIs that are available, as well as some of the software integrations that we've already built out that you can start taking advantage of. And over time, we're going to continue to add to that list of integrations so it becomes even easier to start putting AI capabilities into your enterprise. So with that, we wanted to go back and just share a couple of the other really interesting things that we're doing with Modzy and some of the other capabilities we'll be bringing to market in the near term. So one final thought I wanted to bring up once again on scalability. Modzy leverages technology called Kubernetes, which essentially provides a management of containers and allows you to take code that's been put into a container format and scale it horizontally to meet the needs of your particular business problem. The great thing about the way we've implemented Kubernetes in Modzy is we do a lot of the thinking for you. So as an administrator, you can really focus on sort of 2 ways of using the system. One, to maximize processing speed. And with that, we will allow you to scale up dynamically and start consuming more and more infrastructure as needed to meet the increasing needs of your business, to make sure that as they're processing more data, the infrastructure is there to support them. Alternatively, for organizations that really have to be focused on a fixed cost footprint, you can also run Modzy in such a way where we will process up to a max of hardware and prioritize the jobs within the available set of resources so that we consume and process as much data as possible in as short a period of time as possible, but without exceeding your budget. So with that flexibility, it really makes it possible for you as an organization to determine where does your investment in AI really need to sit? How much money is available for this, and what missions really warrant a high level of investment in infrastructure and hardware versus which missions maybe don't need that kind of speed. We really want to put that in the hands of users. So the final topic I'll bring up is around some of our research agenda topics. There are three areas that we've been really investing in a pretty concerted way that we think every organization who's looking to use AI at the enterprise will eventually want or need within their organization. One area is around adversarial defense. This is the concept that suitably intelligent adversaries can essentially manipulate inputs that get sent to your models in such a way that cause them to make mistakes. Neural networks are really complicated and sophisticated, but they have weaknesses. And a suitably smart bad guy can take advantage of those weaknesses. So here's an example of a model that was trained over here on the left to identify different objects in the world around it. The image on the left was correctly identified as a personnel carrier, whereas the image on the right was identified as a passenger car, which is clearly a mistake. So why did the model think this picture on the left was a personnel carrier while it thought the picture on the right was a passenger car? Well, the answer is that the picture on the right has been manipulated through what's called an adversarial attack. The attack really represents just a small set of pixels that have been added to the model in order to trick that model into making a mistake. This can be done for a whole range of computer vision, or you might call them image-based models. And the amount of challenges that they can cause can be truly massive, especially if you think about the context of autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles really need to be able to trust the inputs that they're consuming in order to make decisions about where the vehicle can safely navigate. This is a real risk, and we've actually invested time into generating two different patents that are currently pending to help defend models against these types of attacks. So we've invented a new approach called RobustNet, which essentially allows us to retrain models in a different way that makes them much more resilient to these types of attacks. So in the next example, we ran those same two inputs, the untouched image and the image with that attack that we saw before. And our new hardened model is successfully able to identify the correct answer both times, personnel carrier for both. This approach, this training process, not only allows us to harden models and make them more resilient to attacks, but it also allows the models that use this approach to translate to other types of data much more readily, which can be a huge improvement if you're taking a model that was trained in one context and trying to apply it in another. So there's some additional side benefits that come up part of this. This research also allows us to do things like identify deep fakes and even identify data sets that may have been manipulated. All of these adversarial defensive mechanisms are available through Modzy, and for organizations that work in highly regulated spaces and need to be aware of these risks, they're going to be essential capabilities for any enterprise AI system. The second area where we're doing some interesting work is around explainability. And this is the idea that neural networks are known to do a bad job of explaining themselves. It's often difficult to understand how a particular prediction was created. So explainability allows a neural network to essentially provide some additional context to say, these are the pixels, in the case of a picture, that caused me to make this prediction. These are the parts of the cat's face that made me think it was a cat or a horse or a child. And there are some solutions out there that provide this capability, but we found them to be too slow for really truly enterprise use. So we developed a new approach called our AXAI solution. And this new approach not only provides this type of explainable output, but in some cases is up to 10 times faster, which means you can start generating these explainable outputs to both help an organization transition and begin trusting AI models more readily, but also to help with after action reports as models make mistakes, and they certainly will. These type of explainable outputs can help provide context in the event that mistakes are made. And the final area that we're really excited about is in model retraining. Traditionally, machine learning models take hours or days or even weeks in some cases to be trained. It's a very resource intensive process. And once that model is trained, it's really only as good as the data it was trained on. So what we've done with Modzy is created an environment, and we're working on a new feature within the product where you can take a commercial model that maybe has been trained for days or weeks, and performs really well on general data sets, but maybe it doesn't perform as well as you'd like on your data. Within Modzy, you'll be able to take that just terrific model and tweak it. And over the course of maybe 15 to 20 minutes of retraining on your data, you can increase performance by 15, 20% in some cases. So what this represents is an opportunity to take really great capabilities that you don't have to build from scratch, and in a very short period of time, tailor them to your business and to your needs. So we're really excited about that capability and think it's going to unlock a lot of innovation in the realm of AI, and really reduce the time to market. So that's really everything we wanted to talk about today. We hope you're as excited as we are about what Modzy is going to be doing, and look forward to talking to you and hearing more about your ideas. And we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your time. And please visit modzy.com for more resources.